I'm going to be refuting the claim that legalizing marijuana would benefit society. My opponent's secondary claims were legalizing marijuana would decrease crime and legalizing marijuana would be good for the economy. And before I address the secondary claims, I would like to address the main claim itself. Legalization has been tried before and it did not work. The Drug Enforcement Agency states that the Alaska Supreme Court ruled in 1975 that the state could not interfere with an adult's possession of marijuana for personal consumption in the home. Although the ruling was limited to persons 19 and over, teens were among those increasingly using marijuana. According to a 1988 University of Alaska study, the state's 12 to 17-year-olds used marijuana at more than twice the national average for their age group. Alaska's residents voted in 1990 to recriminalize possession of marijuana, demonstrating their belief that increased use was too high a price to pay. And in addition to Alaska, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Britain have all had problems with the legalization of drugs. So in response to my opponent's first secondary claim that legalizing marijuana would decrease crime, I would like to bring up a couple of counterclaims. For his first point that it would free up financial resources for more serious crimes, he stated that in 2007 about $8 billion was spent on the prohibition of marijuana and that we were beginning to pay more and more to prevent it, but it's becoming less effective. However, the Department of Justice reported in its 2009 budget that since 2001, the Department of Justice has provided more than $16 billion to the Drug Enforcement Agency and the Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force, leading to the disruption or dismantlement of more than 5,000 major trafficking organizations. So I would say that according to the more recent figure, that the money used towards prohibition is actually effective. And for his third point for the first claim, he said that it would decrease crime because it would be less profitable to drug cartels. And he quoted someone saying that cartels will get about $20 million less if marijuana is legalized, but they will still make money. And Josh Posen of the Cornell Daily Sun writes that Latin American drug cartels would not be crippled. Instead, they would develop and sell more potent marijuana along with cocaine and heroin and would dabble in other forms of profitable crime such as human trafficking and kidnapping. So drug cartels would still exist and they would be just as dangerous. It might be less profitable, but they would find a way to make up for it and it wouldn't really affect them. And for his one of his other points in the first claim, he stated that it would be safer to purchase, but he failed to provide any evidence that this would be the case. He used only a hypothetical situation that you wouldn't be meeting with strangers because you would go in somewhere, but he doesn't provide any evidence. And in response to his secondary claim, that legalizing marijuana would be good for the economy, he said it would create new jobs and career fields. The evidence he used to support this point was an article from the Daily Iowan that discusses possible results in Iowa, and an article about a particular school in Michigan that grows medical marijuana. So from this, I would say that he makes a hasty generalization because he used two articles each from a specific place, talking about one specific instance, and applied it to the overall thing that anybody can grow it and anybody could sell it, making it seem like it would be very easy. And for his second part of the second claim, that it would be regulated and taxed by the government, he provided an analogy between cigarettes and marijuana and what the relationship could be, but he doesn't develop it very well, so it becomes more hypothetical that it could be like that marijuana could be regulated and taxed by the government like cigarettes, but he doesn't fully support that. So to conclude, my opponent does provide some viable reasons as to why legalizing marijuana would benefit society, but his argument is not fully supported and it could benefit from additional evidence. And in addition to this, legalizing marijuana does not benefit the society as a whole. To completely assess whether or not the legalization of marijuana would benefit society, other points such as the health effects should be addressed as well. Thank you.
All right, well, we got the same kind of thing that we just had. You develop a good counterclaim on the major proposition. You give the example of Alaska and the expanded usage by people who are below the age that the law was, or that the court ruling originally covered. And you showed a little bit of the problems there, although none of them are quantified. You then make a generalization that says other places, Netherlands, Switzerland, Britain, all have problems with this. There's no evidence on that point, and that would have been something, I think, that if you documented, that would strengthen that counterclaim a little bit, so when you use it again later on, it would be helpful to you. At the very end of the speech, you say that we ought to be considering the negative effects of what legalization would be. That maybe should have been the second part of your counterclaim at the top there, suggesting that there would in fact be some negative consequences to health or to society, and even if you just have one or two pieces of information that are kind of conclusionary about what those effects are, it would balance against anything that the advocate's saying. On the first point, I thought you did a good job kind of arguing that there has been an effect from spending the money, although I thought that you kind of gave that claim after you gave the evidence. You've given us background on this, you give us the evidence, and then comes the claim. It's almost always clear if the claim comes first, and then we can see how the information is supposed to support those points. The argument about the cartels, I think, same kind of thing. Basically, this is what we'll call a planned meat advantage argument. The idea that legalization would have a significant impact on drug cartels is overestimated, or that they would continue to exist. I don't know that there was any evidence that the advocate cited, and you've got some information here, so contrasting those points I thought was pretty straightforward. The second point, you label it clearly. You kind of challenge the evidence that's being presented. I don't know that it's particularly convincing that the challenge that you give, but you raise a question about it. Same thing with the analogy on cigarettes. It's a good press. It's the kind of thing that you could say immediately after having heard the advocate's argument, but there's no additional information on it. So I think it's a pretty reasonable challenge, but it's not the kind of thing that is convincing at the end. All right, thank you.